I left behind my life in the United States to be with you, and this is what I get in return? I yelled almost tearfully. How could you betray me like this? I asked again, looking into Pascal's guilty eyes as I desperately wished that what I'd seen 30 seconds ago was a lie. His lips trembled. Adane, please, it's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like? I scoffed. Then tell me, Pascal, what exactly is it when I walk into your apartment and find another woman wearing your shirt? Silence. The sound of my heartbeat filled the room, loud and broken. Outside, the Lagos traffic hummed as though the world refused to pause for my heartbreak. My name is Adane. I'm a 30-year-old nurse, born and bred in the United States. My family relocated from Nigeria to America when I was 5. My parents left with nothing but a few suitcases and dreams of a better life. They built everything from the ground up, the accent, the degrees, the suburban home. And I built my life there too. Nursing school, a job in Atlanta, and a life so structured it began to feel like a script I hadn't written. The pay was good, the life was stable, but I felt empty. My parents often talked about home, the land they left behind, Lagos, Enugu, Onitsha. My grandmother would call every Sunday, telling me stories of a place where the air smelled like roasted corn, where the laughter of neighbors replaced the hum of city sirens. At 30, after one too many night shifts, and a relationship that crashed like a bad experiment, I realized I needed change. I told my mother, I think I want to visit Nigeria. I want to know where we came from. She smiled through the phone. Go, Noam. You'll find yourself there. So I packed my life into 2 suitcases and boarded a flight to Lagos. Lagos hit me like a drumbeat, loud, alive, and unapologetic. From the moment I stepped off the plane, I felt the chaos and rhythm dance together. Honking cars, shouting hawkers, the heat clinging to my skin. It was overwhelming, but strangely intoxicating. My grandparents' home in Surulere became my base. Grandma Ngozi, 75 and still fierce, hugged me tight. Ah, Adane, you've grown into a fine woman. America didn't steal your beauty. I laughed, though my heart was still adjusting. The afternoon sun slanted lazily through the curtains of my grandparents' living room in Surulere, washing the furniture in a golden hue. The rhythmic hum of generators filled the air, occasionally drowned out by the loud chatter of hawkers on the street. Lagos had a pulse that never seemed to rest, and though I'd only been here for a few days, I was already feeling its heartbeat in my bones. Grandma sat in her favorite armchair, her gele perfectly tied, even though she hadn't stepped outside all day. Grandpa reclined on the couch beside her, sipping Zubo from a tall glass and nodding thoughtfully as if every word exchanged in the room needed his silent approval. So, my daughter, Grandma began with that familiar teasing smell. How is it that you've been in Lagos for 1 week and you're already complaining about the heat? I laughed, waving the handheld fan in front of my face. Grandma, this sun is personal. In America, the heat comes with air conditioners and iced coffee. Here, it feels like the sun is angry with everybody. Grandpa chuckled. That's because you've been living in Oyibo land too long. Our sun is good for the skin. It toughens you or fries you, I muttered under my breath. And Grandma laughed so hard, her gele shifted slightly. They both leaned in, eager to hear about the world I'd come from. So I told them, in America, everything moves in straight lines. The roads are wide and smooth. People drive in their lanes, and traffic lights actually mean something. Here, it's like driving through a video game. Everyone's honking, cutting lanes, and shouting. I was in Ikeke yesterday, and I swear the driver missed an Okada by 1 inch. Grandpa's eyes twinkled. That's part of the adventure. If you can drive in Lagos, you can drive anywhere in the world. I'm not sure I want that kind of skill, I said laughing. In the States, the loudest thing on my way to work was the morning radio. Here is car horns, street preachers, and someone selling gala through your window. Grandma clapped her hands in amusement. That's Lagos for you. We don't sleep. I grew quiet for a moment, then added, but you know, despite the chaos, there's something beautiful here. The people, everyone's alive. In the US, life can feel sterile, structured. Everyone's too busy to talk. Here, you step outside and strangers greet you like family. Even when they're hustling, there's warmth in it. Grandpa nodded approvingly. That's the Nigerian spirit. We may suffer small, but we still laugh. I think I miss that, I admitted softly. In America, I was always working, double shifts at the hospital, barely sleeping. Everything was about money, bills, time,
I came here thinking I would finally breathe, but now I'm realizing that this place has its own kind of rhythm. Fast, unpredictable, but real. Grandma smiled. You'll find your pace, my dear. Lagos will teach you balance. We sat in silence for a while, the sound of a distant church choir drifting in through the window. Eventually, Grandma clapped her hands. So, what will you do today? You can't just sit inside all day and rust. I was thinking of going to the mall. I need a few essentials. My suitcase couldn't fit everything. Go to Ikeja City Mall. It's modern like the ones you have in America. You'll like it. Later that afternoon, I stepped into the mall, and for a brief moment, I could have sworn I was back in New Jersey. The polished tiles, the air conditioning, the faint scent of perfume from a nearby store. It felt familiar. But then came the differences. The escalator paused halfway. Someone complained in Yoruba, and a mall attendant ran over to fix it. A group of teenagers posed for selfies near the cinema, their laughter echoing through the atrium. I wandered into a supermarket, basket in hand. The aisles were narrower than I was used to, and the prices, especially for imported items, made me blink twice. A box of cereal cost almost double what it did back home. Still, the cashier smiled warmly, chatting as she scanned my items. First time here? I hesitated, then smiled. Is it that obvious? She laughed. You look like someone still comparing everything to abroad. I laughed too, realizing how true that was. As I walked out of the mall, shopping bag in hand, the evening air hit my face, humid, thick, and full of life. Cars honked, hawkers called out, and I could smell roasted corn from a street corner. Maybe Lagos wasn't America, but for the first time since I'd arrived, I wasn't sure that was a bad thing. A week later, I joined a local NGO that ran free health clinics for underprivileged communities in Lagos. I met children who had never seen a nurse before, mothers who carried babies like fragile dreams, and men with eyes full of stories untold. Every day, I felt something awaken inside me, compassion, purpose, maybe even belonging. But one night changed everything. It was a Friday. I just lost a patient that morning, a little boy named Emeka. He was 7, and despite everything we did, his tiny body couldn't fight any longer. I went home, stared at my ceiling, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I went out. A friend from the NGO, UJU, dragged me to a nice club in Victoria Island. The place was alive with Afrobeat rhythms, flashing lights, and people who seemed to forget life's weight for a while. The bass thumped through my chest, and for the first time that day, I wasn't thinking about the sound of hospital monitors. I sat at the bar, sipping something too strong for my American stomach, trying to drown the sadness. Then I saw him, tall, dark-skinned, a smile that could melt iron. He leaned against the counter, chatting with the bartender, his laughter deep and magnetic. His shirt was half-buttoned, revealing a gold chain that caught the strobe lights. He looked like someone who belonged to this city, confident, unbothered, alive. When our eyes met, he walked straight to me. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" he said with a grin. "As loud," I replied, almost shouting over the music. He chuckled. "That's Lagos for you. You don't come here to think, you come here to feel." I smiled faintly. "I think I've forgotten how to do that." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Then maybe tonight's your chance to remember." His name was Pascan, 28 years old, taxi driver by day, party lover by night. He had that mix of roughness and charm that made every word sound like a promise. He told me he used to dream of becoming a musician, but life had other plans. "Now I just drive people chasing their own dreams," he said with a shrug, though his eyes told me he hadn't stopped dreaming entirely. We talked for almost an hour about Lagos traffic, about music, about how expensive everything had become. He listened when I spoke, not just waiting for his turn to talk. There was something refreshing about that. He offered to drive me home when the night ended. I refused at first, but when he insisted, "Please, I can't let a lady like you struggle with Lagos cab guys at 2 a.m. I gave in. In the car, the city was quieter, softer. I learned he was from Benue State, raised in Lagos, hustling to make ends meet. His stories were wild, funny, and heartbreakingly honest. About growing up in Makoko, about his mother who sold akara, about the passengers who treated him like air. I found myself laughing for the first time in weeks. When I stepped out of his car that night, I thought that would be it. A fleeting encounter in a city full of strangers. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, I booked a ride through an app to get to the NGO's office. My driver's name on the app was Joseph, but when the car pulled up, it wasn't Joseph driving, it was Pascal. He looked surprised for half a second, before that same disarming smile curved his lips. "We meet again, Nosadane." I laughed, adjusting the strap of my bag. What are the odds? Maybe Lagos traffic brought us together again, he teased, tilting his head playfully. Or maybe Joseph owes you money and you hijacked this car, I shot back. He grinned. Touché. But no, Joseph's my friend. He called in sick and I offered to cover for him. Guess I was meant to see you again. I rolled my eyes, but a smile lingered. You and your destiny talk. Hey, he said, as I got into the front seat. You'll be surprised how many Lagos love stories start with a wrong turn. We both laughed, and soon the car filled with easy conversation. It didn't feel like 2 weeks had passed since the nightclub. It felt like we had just paused mid-sentence and picked up where we left off. So, Pascal said, glancing at me briefly as he maneuvered through traffic. You're still saving lives? Trying to, I said softly. Some days are harder than others. He nodded thoughtfully. You look tired that night, like someone carrying too many stories in her heart. That struck me. Maybe I was, I admitted. A patient died that morning, a child. It just broke something in me. Pascal sighed. My mother used to say nurses are angels who bleed in silence. She was sick for years before she passed. The nurses at RUTH were her favorite people. She'd call them her daughters in white. I turned to him surprised. Your mother passed away? Yeah, cancer. I was 21. He smiled faintly, but his eyes grew distant. After that, I just wanted to make money, hustle. I didn't care how, I just wanted to survive. I tried music, didn't work, worked construction, sold recharge cards, then started driving. He chuckled. Lagos will humble you fast. I smiled sadly. You sound like someone who's lived 5 lives already. Maybe I have, he said. What about you? Why did you leave America? Most people are trying to go there. I hesitated, staring out of the window. It wasn't running away. I just needed to breathe. My life in Atlanta was too polished, too planned. I was engaged to a man named Corey, investment banker, smooth talker, looked perfect on paper. What happened? Pascal asked quietly. I sighed. He couldn't handle my job. I worked nights, double shifts. He said I cared more about my patients than him. Maybe he was right. The night he packed his bags, he said, You're married to your work, Adane. Pascal was silent for a moment. Sounds like he didn't deserve you. I laughed lightly. Or maybe I didn't deserve him. No, he said firmly, glancing at me. Anyone who can't stand beside you while you do good work doesn't deserve a front row seat to your life. That line caught me off guard. I looked at him, this taxi driver with calloused hands, dimples that appeared only when he smiled fully, and a voice that carried warmth. There was something about his honesty that drew me in. You really believe that? I asked. He shrugged. I've seen people with nothing give their all for love, and people with everything still lose it. I believe what's real stays, no matter how messy. We drove in silence for a while, the hum of traffic filling the spaces between us. Lagos flashed by, street hawkers, danfo buses, flashing billboards. When we reached the NGO office, I unbuckled my seatbelt. Thanks for the ride, Pascal. He smiled. Next time, I'm not waiting for destiny. I'll call you. I chuckled. You don't even have my number. He smirked and tapped the small ID card clipped to my lanyard. Adane Ezi, nurse, NGO, Lagos Island. That's enough for a determined man. I laughed, shaking my head. Persistent, aren't you? Only when it matters, he said softly. As I stepped out of the car, but before I could close the door, he added, For what it's worth, I'm glad Joseph called in sick. As he drove off, I caught myself smiling, something warm blooming in my chest that I hadn't felt in a long time. Still, I didn't expect him to actually call. But a week later, when my phone rang and I heard that familiar voice say, So, Nosadane, how about that dinner you owe me? I answered, and our love bloomed in chaos. Pascal was not the type I usually fell for. He wasn't polished, he wasn't rich, but he was real. He made me laugh, he listened, and he had this way of making the world quieter when he spoke. We'd drive around Lagos at night, from Lekki to Yaba, eating suya and laughing about everything. He'd tell me about his dreams of owning a fleet of taxis someday, and I'll tell him about my plan to open a health center in rural Nigeria. He called me my queen, and for the first time in a long time, I believed I could be someone's. But there were red flags I ignored. He'd disappear for hours without calling. Sometimes I'd see missed calls from unknown numbers late at night. Once, I found a gold earring in his car. He said it belonged to a passenger. I wanted to believe him. I really did. Because I was falling deeply, foolishly, beautifully in love. A week later, he took me to a small outdoor bar in Lekki to meet some of his friends. It was one of those open-air joints with plastic chairs, loud music, and the smell of grilled suya in the air. His friends greeted me with wide smiles and teasing jokes. "This must be Nosa Daniel," Uche said, a tall, lean guy who had a mischievous sparkle in his eyes. "We've heard plenty good things about you. Pascal no dey keep quiet." I smiled politely. I hope it was all good things. Another, Chooks, raised his bottle. "Good things, yes, but we don't know how you cope with this man's wahala." Everyone laughed, and Pascal playfully threw a napkin at him. At first, I enjoyed their banter, but as the night went on, I began to notice things. The way they bragged about quick money, about runs, about women they'd been with. It wasn't just harmless talk. There was something dark under the laughter. Uche leaned close to Pascal and whispered something I couldn't hear. Pascal chuckled, but gave him a look that said not now. Still, I saw the exchange, and unease crept into me. On our way home, I asked, "Those friends of yours, what do they do, really?" He tightened the grip on the steering wheel. "They are hustlers, Adani, like everyone else trying to survive." "They don't exactly sound honest," I said carefully. He gave a small laugh. "You've been in Lagos long enough to know that honesty doesn't always pay rent." I looked at him, but he kept his eyes on the road. I wanted to argue, to tell him that survival shouldn't mean compromise, but his expression stopped me. That was the first time I saw a shadow in him, something I didn't yet understand. 3 months in, things grew serious. He introduced me to his cousin, his friends, but when I asked about his family, he grew distant. "Pascal," I said one evening, as we sat by Bar Beach, watching the waves crash, "I've met your grandparents. I want to meet yours too." He sighed, running a hand over his short-cropped hair. "It's complicated." "What's complicated about family?" I pressed gently. He hesitated, then said softly, "I have a son."
The words hit me like cold water. "With who?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Her name's Chamaka. We dated years ago. It didn't work out, but we have a child together. I see him sometimes." I was silent for a long time. He reached for my hand. "I didn't want to scare you away, but I swear, it's over between me and her." I wanted to believe that too. Love makes you see the best in someone, even when the truth is right in front of you. Later that month, I finally asked him about Chamaka. They had met when he was 23, still trying to find his footing in life. He was working part-time as a driver for a logistics company. She was a hairdresser at a salon near his route. "She was fire," he said, smiling faintly. "Bold, loud, funny. She made me feel seen when I had nothing." They dated for 2 years, mostly on and off. We fought a lot, he admitted. She wanted marriage fast. I wasn't ready. I didn't even have steady money. Then she got pregnant. He paused for a long time before continuing. "When she told me, I panicked. I wanted to do the right thing, but her parents hated me. They said I was a roadman with no future. I worked harder, tried to save, but I failed her." "What happened after she had the baby?" I asked softly. "She moved back to Enugu with her family, said she needed stability. I still send money when I can. I visit when she lets me, but it's tense. She's angry, maybe rightfully so." I nodded slowly, trying to imagine the pain in both their stories. "And the boy, Chibuike," he said with pride. "He's 5, smart, stubborn, just like her." He smiled wistfully, then turned serious. "I should have told you earlier. I just didn't want you to see me through that lens." I touched his arm. "Pascal, we all have pasts. It's not your son that worries me. It's what you keep from me." He looked at me, guilt flickering in his eyes. "You have nothing to worry about, Adani. I'm done with that life. I'm trying to be better, for you, for myself." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But that night, as I lay in bed, replaying the laughter of his friends, the way they whispered, and the name Chamaka echoing in my mind, I couldn't shake one thought. Love wasn't supposed to come with so many shadows. Just as I was processing Pascal's secret, my own past came knocking. His name was Ryan, my ex from Atlanta, the man I thought I'd left behind for good. He emailed me one morning. "Adane, I'm in Lagos for work. Can we talk?" At first, I stared at the message for a long time, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Every rational thought told me to delete it, but curiosity and perhaps nostalgia got the better of me. A part of me needed closure, to see the man who once held my heart and shattered it so easily. We met at a quiet cafe in Ikeja. The place smelt of roasted coffee and rain, with the soft hum of traffic outside. Ryan looked different, a little older, his hair thinner, the easy confidence replaced with something heavier. He smiled when he saw me, that same smile that made me say yes to him in the first place. "I was stupid," he said after we ordered. "I shouldn't have let you go. You deserve better than how I treated you." I studied him, unsure what to feel. "Ryan, it's been years," I said quietly. "He's moved on.
He nodded slowly, eyes lowering to his cup. I know. I just needed to say it to your face. For a while, we talked about life. The hospitals I'd worked in, his move to a new company, how Lagos fascinated and overwhelmed him. It was civil, even warm. When he stood to leave, he hugged me. A brief, harmless gesture. And that was it. Or so I thought. Later that evening when I got home, my phone buzzed with a message from Pascal. Who is that man? Attached was a photo. Me and Ryan sitting across from each other, mid-conversation, taken from a distance. I froze. My heart pounded. Someone had seen us and sent the picture to him. Lagos. Big city, small world. I called him immediately. Pascal, it's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Because it looks like you were having a nice little reunion. He's my ex. He reached out, wanted closure. That's it. I didn't hide it from you to deceive you. I just didn't think it mattered. Pascal laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. That's exactly what you said when you caught me on the phone with Chamaka. You told me it wasn't about trust, it was about respect. So what's this then? His words cut deeper than I expected. This is different, Pascal. I wasn't sneaking around. I didn't lie to you. He stood abruptly, pacing the living room of my apartment. Different? You sat with him, smiled at him, let him touch you. I hugged him goodbye. I interrupted, anger flaring. Are you even listening to yourself? You think I'd throw away everything we've built over a cup of coffee? He stopped pacing, his jaw tight, eyes dark. You don't get it, Adane. Every time I think I have peace, something reminds me that I'm not enough for you. Not American enough, not rich enough, not... I stepped forward, voice trembling. Don't you dare twist this into insecurity. This isn't about where you're from. It's about trust. You have your past, I have mine. I didn't judge you for Chiamaka or for the people you still keep around who make me uneasy. Silence fell, heavy, suffocating. He looked away, running his hand over his face. Maybe we're just too different, Adane. Maybe what we're trying to build was broken from the start. My throat tightened. Don't say that, I whispered. But he didn't reply. He just grabbed his keys and walked out. The sound of the door closing echoed like thunder in the quiet apartment. That night, I sat alone on the couch, staring at the picture that started it all. The frozen smiles, the harmless moment turned into poison. Love began to crack, slowly, painfully. And this time, I wasn't sure it could be mended. On Wednesday night, I had a dream that clung to me long after dawn. In the dream, I was standing alone in a vast, misty field. The air was thick and cold, and every breath I took came out in trembling clouds. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear faint music, a melancholic tone that felt oddly familiar. Then through the fog, a figure began to emerge. He was tall, dressed in white, and though I couldn't see his face clearly, there was something heartbreakingly familiar about him. I felt an ache in my chest, like I knew him, like he had once been a part of me. He turned slightly, and I caught a glimpse of his silhouette before he started walking away. Wait, I cried, running towards him. But the harder I ran, the farther he drifted. My legs felt heavy, as though the earth itself was trying to hold me back. I reached out my hand, desperate to touch him, to see his face, but the fog swallowed him whole. And then, just as suddenly, I was alone again. A cold wind blew through the field, whispering something I couldn't understand. My chest tightened, and tears streamed down my face. The pain felt too real, too sharp for a dream. Then out of nowhere, I heard my own voice, soft, trembling, whisper, "He's gone forever." That's when I woke up.
I shot off from the bed, panting, my heart racing as though I'd been running for miles. My night shirt clung to my skin, drenched in sweat. The room was pitch dark, except for the dim orange glow of the streetlight outside. For a moment, I couldn't move. I just sat there, gripping my sheets, staring into the shadows like they held the answer to what I'd just seen. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, the kind that crawls under your skin and refuses to leave. Without thinking, I reached for my phone and dialed my mom's number in Atlanta. It was nearly 3 a.m. in Lagos, which meant it was still evening back home. She picked up almost immediately. Adane. Her voice was soft, laced with concern. "Is everything okay?" I swallowed hard. "Mom, I had a bad dream. A really bad one. There was someone, I don't even know who. But I felt like I was losing them, like they were slipping away and I couldn't stop it." There was a brief silence before she spoke, her tone calm but full of warmth. "Oh, baby, it's okay. Dreams can be strange that way. Maybe it's your spirit telling you to rest, to stop worrying so much. I don't know. It felt real, like something terrible is coming." She sighed gently.
You've been through a lot lately, Adani. Between work, the stress, and Pascal. Sometimes, our minds weave all that fear into dreams, but everything's fine here. I'm fine. Grandma's fine. You're safe. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I just couldn't shake the feeling. I know, she said softly. Pray, my dear. Pray and go back to sleep. Let God handle whatever's troubling your heart. I smiled weakly, her voice grounding me. Thank you, Mom. Anytime. And Adaneo, yeah? Remember, not every goodbye means loss. Sometimes it's just life clearing the path for something new. Her words lingered long after the call ended. I lay back in bed staring at the ceiling fan as it spun lazily, the hum blending with the distant noise of Lagos nightlife. But no matter how I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that the dream had been a warning of what was to come. The next evening, that unease still sat heavy in my chest. I decided to do something to quiet it, to make peace with Pascal after days of awkward silence following our argument about Ryan. It was a humid Thursday night when I packed his favorite meal, jollof rice, spicy goat meat, and fried plantain, neatly arranged in a food tray, and took a cab to his apartment in Yaba. As the car wound through the crowded streets, I rehearsed what I'd say. I'd tell him I was sorry too, that we could start over, that love was worth one more try. The dream, I told myself, was just a dream, nothing more. When I arrived, the compound was quiet. The night air was thick and heavy. I climbed the stairs to his flat, balancing the food with one hand, my heart strangely anxious. His door was slightly open. Pascal, I called softly. As I pushed it open, no response. Then I heard it. Laughter. A woman's laughter. I froze. The sound was coming from his bedroom. My body went cold as I stepped closer, each footstep slower than the last. When I reached the doorway, I saw her, Chiamaka, wearing Pascal's white shirt, her hair loose and messy, her eyes smug and unbothered. Pascal stood a few feet away, his face pale with guilt. The words burst out of me before I could stop them. I left behind my life in the United States to be with you, and this is what I get in return? How could you betray me like this? He reached for me, stammering something. But I couldn't hear him. The dream came rushing back, the faceless figure walking away, the unbearable feeling of loss.
Only now, I knew what it had meant. I dropped the food on the floor, the containers bursting open. Red sauce splattered across the tiles like spilled blood. Then I turned and walked away, tears clouding my vision. Pascal called my name, running after me, but all I could hear was the echo of that dream, whispering what I already knew. Some losses are meant to happen. For weeks, I didn't leave my grandparents' house. Lagos felt darker, heavier. Every song, every street reminded me of him. He texted, called, begged. He even came to the NGO once, pleading outside like a desperate man, but I couldn't forgive him. My grandparents noticed long before I said a word. Every morning, Grandma would peek into my room and see me sitting by the window, staring blankly at the mango tree in the compound. My grandfather would call me to come eat breakfast, but most times, I barely touched my food. My laughter, the one that used to fill their house, had vanished, replaced by silence, heavy enough to make the air feel thick. One evening, after dinner, Grandma sat beside me on the veranda. The sun was dipping below the rooftops, painting the sky a faint orange. She held a cup of zobo in one hand and studied me for a long while before speaking. "Adane, my dear," she said gently, "your spirit looks tired. Tell me, what's weighing you down?" I forced a smile. "Nothing, Grandma. I'm fine." She chuckled softly, shaking her head. "You've forgotten I raised your mother, eh? You think I don't know when a woman's heart is hurting?" I looked away, blinking fast. "It's nothing serious." Grandpa, who had been listening quietly from his armchair, folded his newspaper and said in his deep, calm voice, "Child, when pain is locked inside, it grows roots. Better to let it breathe." Their kindness broke the wall I'd been holding up for weeks. I exhaled shakily and finally said, "It's Pascal. He betrayed me." They stayed silent, waiting for me to continue. I told them everything, from how we met that night at the club, to how he made me believe in love again, and then to the moment I found him with Chiamaka. My voice trembled as I spoke, but neither of them interrupted. When I finished,
Grandma sighed, her eyes distant, as though she was remembering something from long ago. She murmured. You remind me so much of myself when I was your age. I turned to her, surprised. You? She nodded, a small smile touching her lips. Yes, me. You think heartbreak is new? Let me tell you something. She shifted in her chair, her voice soft but steady. When I was 24, I fell in love with a man named Joseph. He was tall, handsome, and full of sweet words. He promised me the world, said he would build a future with me. But one day, I found out he had another woman in the next town. She was pregnant with his child. My eyes widened. Grandma, I cried for weeks. My mother told me to let him go, but I was stubborn. I thought if I forgave him, he'd change. I believed my love could fix him. She paused, her gaze fixed on the horizon. But love cannot fix what a person refuses to repair within themselves. Grandpa nodded slowly. Your grandmother learned the hard way, but she learned. So what happened to Joseph? I asked quietly. He married that other woman, she said, shrugging lightly. And a few years later, I met your grandfather, a man who didn't promise me the world, but showed me steady love every day. No drama, no lies, just peace. Grandpa chuckled. She didn't even want to talk to me at first, because I thought peace was boring. Grandma laughed, the sound rich and full. But now, I thank God for every boring day with this old man. Her laughter was contagious. For the first time in weeks, I smiled, a real, unforced smile. Then Grandma reached for my hand. Adane, my dear, she said, heartbreak feels like the end, but it's only a bend in the road. Sometimes, God allows the wrong person to break us, so we'll recognize the right one when he comes. Don't close your heart forever. Just learn to guard it better. Her words sank deep into me. Something shifted. The ache didn't vanish, but it softened. I looked up at the fading sky, its colors now deep purple and gold, and felt a small glimmer of peace. I think I understand now, I said quietly. Grandpa smiled. Good, because the worst thing pain can do is stop you from living. That night, I went to bed lighter. I still thought of Pascal sometimes, his laughter, his promises, his lies. But now, instead of bitterness, I felt gratitude. Because as Grandma's story taught me, not all love is meant to stay. Some love only visits, to teach us who we are and what we truly deserve. Pascal taught me how to feel again. But he also taught me that love without trust is like a car without fuel. It goes nowhere. Months passed. I extended my stay in Nigeria, pouring myself into the NGO work. I began to see healing in others and in myself. I visited a small village where we opened a new clinic. The children called me Auntie Nurse, their smiles bright as sunrise. One evening, as I watched the sunset over the dusty road, I realized I no longer felt anger, only peace. Pascal had reached out one last time, a letter. He wrote, Adane, I don't deserve forgiveness, but thank you for showing me what real love looks like. I'm trying to be a better man for my son. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. I cried reading it, not from pain, but from closure. I wrote back, Pascal, I wish you light. Maybe in another life, love would have found us ready, but in this one, it has taught us instead. A year later, I sat by the ocean in Lagos, the same place we once sat together. The waves whispered like old friends. I had decided to stay in Nigeria permanently. I co-founded a small healthcare center with UCHE, helping women and children. My heart, once shattered, had become stronger, like a scar turned into a story. Sometimes, I still think of Pascal, his laughter, his promises, his lies, but I don't regret loving him. Because love, I learned, isn't always about holding on. Sometimes, it's about knowing when to let go. And as the Lagos sun dipped into the horizon, painting the sky gold and crimson, I whispered softly to myself, some endings are just new beginnings in disguise. The lesson to be learned in this story is that in love, truth is the heartbeat that keeps it alive. Lies, no matter how small, will suffocate it. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is walking away.